Welcome to the 228th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. In case you're new to the podcast, I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thank you for listening. I am just almost a week out of just completing the 2019 Ironman Chattanooga 144.6 distance. So, spoiler alert, it's over and I finished it. My time was 14 hours and 18 minutes. That was 10th in my age group. I'm happy with that. It was very hot, and I'm going to talk about it during this podcast. But we'll kind of go into it as far as, the whole kit and caboodle driving up. We drove from Florida to Chattanooga, and people always talk about what are you going to eat when you're on the road and things like that. And we usually bring lunch with us, so we have some snacks. But when we finally got there, we had some Thai food in Chattanooga. We don't have any trouble finding plant-based restaurants in Chattanooga. We had there's a great Greek restaurant that makes pretty good oil-free couscous and grilled vegetables, as well as a hummus and a salad. There's also a vegan spot named Cashews where I got a great kale salad with tofu and pinto beans and tofu-based dill dressing. That was really good. The day before the race, I cooked. I brought my Instant Pot with me, so I did a tomato sauce with zucchini and mushrooms and peppers in that. We did that over rigatoni with a big salad. I had made a pumpkin bread pretty much out of our cookbook. We did the banana bread recipe and substituted pumpkin in for it, so that worked out good for our dessert. And then we were ready for race. We did overnight oats, and so got up about 3:30 in the morning and had our overnight oats and headed out to the race start. For all those, or for any of you that do not do triathlon, went to the transition area, pumped up the tires of the bike. You take your nutrition in the morning. So I went with what I've been training with, the grape juice and maple syrup, and a pinch of salt in there. Put that on the bike, and we were bussed to the swim start, where you seed yourself where you think you're going to swim as far as the time. So we seated ourselves around, in the hour range time slot, and proceeded to just sit there and wait. And so the sun comes up, the national anthem is sung. It was a beautiful solo by a volunteer, and we jumped into the water 2 by 2 down the Tennessee River. And it's a beautiful swim. The sun's coming up behind you, so you're not looking into the sun when you look up to spot. You see yellow buoys probably every couple hundred yards, and then when you get halfway, they turn to orange, so that's your halfway mark. I've also done the swim before, and you swim by an island to the right of you as you're swimming along, so that kind of tells you you're getting to the halfway mark, and then you start swimming under the bridges. And that's the sign for me that I'm coming home. I'm going under the bridges. You can hear the people screaming and yelling at the finish, of the swim. So that's always exciting and motivating. So I got out of the water, got on the bike, headed out to Georgia. You ride out of town about 6 miles before you hit Georgia, and then you ride 2 loops through the countryside out there into the Chickamauga battlefield. And that's the little town that you go through for transition areas, so there's always people there. But otherwise, the ride is a pretty quiet ride through the countryside, farms. There's a lot of churches, so people going to church and they're waving. There's a couple fire stations out around there. The roads are 2 lanes, a little bit bumpy, a little bit hilly, nothing horrible. A few bigger hills, but nothing too taxing. At least for the first loop, it was kind of funny to see, you watch people go up the hills in the first loop versus the second loop. When I came around the second time, there was this just long line, looked like a long line of ants up this one hill that were just kind of chugging up. So you could tell that the heat was starting to get to people. Started out in the morning at 80 degrees. The water temperature was 81 degrees. It was warm in the water. I could already feel myself sweating just at the beginning. The bike was a little shaded in the first half. Then the sun really started to heat up, and you could start to feel it. The first loop, I stopped a couple times to get water, and I poured some water over top of me to cool down. The second loop, I got another grape juice in my transition bag. I also packed three little boiled potatoes, and a half a peanut butter and nutso sandwich. Nutso, for any of you people that are going to say, what's nutso? It's a nut butter, but it's mainly seeds with some almonds. And so I had that. It was funny. I was riding through Chickamauga, eating my sandwich, and somebody said, enjoy your lunch, so it's quick lunch at 17, 18 miles an hour, pedaling through. But that was good. It tasted good to have some solid food. The second loop started to get really hot, though. And I was stopping, the aid stations were about every 10 to 15 miles. And I stopped at every one of them to get water and put water on me. I used another bottle of electrolyte drink called Scratch, which, I had some powder in my bag that I keep on my bike. It's because I knew that I was starting to really lose electrolytes. My skin was, very salty, and when you touch yourself, there was a pretty good layer forming. And I was sweating a lot. More so. We train in here in Florida. We do 6-hour bike rides, and it's hot. But I was dripping there earlier, and more so than I was down here. So I knew between the swim and the bike at that point, I was losing a lot of fluid. I drink to thirst. I put more water in than I ever usually do. I wasn't forcing water down. I'm deathly afraid of hyponatremia, because hyponatremia is deathly. So if you overhydrate, you can actually dilute the sodium in your blood, no matter how much salt you take in. And that can cause brain swelling and herniation and death and severe, dizziness and sickness. And so I want no part of that. So I drink to thirst. A little dehydration is not going to kill anybody. It may slow you down or stop you temporarily, but it won't kill you. So anyway, I poured water down my head and drank water to thirst as much as I could get in, and got back into town, got off the bike, and realized that I was really pretty tight and crampy. I never really got off the bike during I would sort of stand up over the tube and refill my water bottles. I didn't get off and stretch. Probably a bad thing. I've always talked about getting off and stretching before, and certainly during training rides we get off and stretch a little bit. But I just, I kind of felt that I was stopping so much, I didn't want to take the time to do that. And I didn't really feel like I had to get off. Sometimes you just feel like you have to get off and stretch, and I never had that feeling. But anyway, when I got off the bike in transition after the 116 miles, I was tight. I wasn't even walking very well. It was a shuffle to the changing tent, which is not a good sign when you have to run a marathon. But anyway, I got in the changing tent, put a tank top on, got rid of my tri-top, and stood up and sat back down. I just kind of fell back down in the chair. My legs weren't ready to hold me, which is kind of funny. The assistant and the volunteer in the tent, we were laughing that I just had no control, went right back down. So I got back up and shuffled out, and my hamstrings were pretty tight, and it's like, oh, this is not going to be the marathon that I really wanted. I did take some base salt in, which is a company that gives us salt out in a little tube. It looks like chapstick. And you shake a little bit on your thumb, and you eat it off your thumb. It was 200 milligrams of sodium in there, so I did that. They suggest that you do it at every mile at aid stations. I was, again, afraid of that as far as becoming sick, because in the past that's kind of made me a little nauseated. But I tolerated it, and it seemed to make my cramps better. So I thought, well, this might be a good thing. I started to feel better, took some ice water. They gave you socks to put ice around your neck. Had cold sponges, so doing everything you can to keep your body cool. You have to think about it when you're when you're doing a race like that. You're diverting blood flow away from your gut in the beginning when you send most of your blood flow to your muscles that are working, so your blood flow is away from your gut. But when it's really hot, you're diverting even more blood flow to your skin surface to try to cool your skin. So there's not a whole lot of blood flow to your gut, and it's easy to get into trouble from that aspect. So I didn't feel too bad. I would take a little bit of Coke, which is not a great thing, caffeine and sugar, but it gets where it needs to go really quick. And so during the marathon, that's usually the only time I ever have Coca-Cola as during the marathon of a triathlon. But I felt okay, and I felt like I could do something solid. So to get away from the Coke, I did a gel. And the first gel sat pretty good, and I perked up, and I was running a little bit better. And the mistake I made was to try to do another gel. And the sun was, again, still really beating. You run along a road in the beginning, and then you finally get back into a park where there's some shade. But after the second gel, I started getting a little nauseated. And, the regrets, you've had a few. It was that one gel. I wish I wouldn't have taken that. I wish I would have stayed with sipping the Coke because it was just a little sip every mile. But nevertheless, I did that and just was starting to be a little queasy. Could not get enough fluids in me to, keep things going that way either. Again, I just went to ice down my shirt, sponge on my face, ice, water down my back. And taking in as much water as I could. Didn't have much in the way of cramping or any kind of muscle discomfort. It was just the nausea that started to get me. And I was running pretty much. I run to an aid station there every mile and walk through the aid station and get some water, and then start out going again. And then again, I would walk some of the hills. But I made it. It's interesting. You break things down, and that's what I like about endurance events. The swim I break down easily with the buoys and the island and the bridges, and that goes really fast. And I have to say I probably enjoyed the swim the most. Getting on the bike, it's broken down in those two loops. You get out of town, do the two loops. I didn't have a flat tire this year, so it was great. I kept thinking about that flat tire that I had last year, and it's like, oh, please, if I can just get through this without a flat tire, it'll be great. So I was really thankful for that. And then you kind of go aid station. There's also on the bike course, you go out along and you kind of climb out, and then you just kind of circle back. And so I break that up into, there's the part that I go out, and then there's a part I come back. And so I broke each loop into two loops. And then you get on the run, and it's basically 26 1-mile repeats. And that's just how I look at things. So I never felt like, it was an overwhelming day as far as, I never thought 144 miles. I always thought segments, which makes the day, a lot more pleasant. The day I was happy during the day because, we had the opportunity to do it. It's a gift to be able to get out there and get on the start line healthy and to be able to participate. So I was very thankful to be out there and enjoyed it. And there was no time that I thought, this is miserable. I don't know why I'm doing this. It was difficult. It was very difficult. But it was a challenge, and it was something to work through all the time. Again, that's kind of why these endurance events are like life. If you look at the big picture sometimes or look too far into the future, it becomes overwhelming. We talk about it with our members. If they have a lot of weight to lose or a lot of insulin to get rid of, it can be overwhelming. But if you just look at one step at a time and break it down, it's certainly little steps you can certainly do it. And so that was pretty much the day is breaking things down into little steps. I told some people that I was going to run a mile for them during the race, and I did. I thought about a lot of my members. There are a lot of my members that are struggling, that, needed that extra encouragement, perhaps, a little bit of telepathy or a little bit of positive energy their way. And I did do that. I got to tell you, it's hard to run a mile for somebody. when you think about it, yeah, you're struggling to do one foot in front of the other, and you're trying to think about that person, and it's a lot to think about when your mind is, your brain's just not working really good. But I got your name out there, and into my head, and so hopefully the energy, there was certainly a lot of energy moving, so hopefully it went into the right direction. The last 7 miles, I pretty much did without swallowing anything. I'd take some water and ice water in my mouth and swish it around and spit it out, because I was nauseated to the point where I thought I was going to throw up, and I hate to throw up. So that's kind of how I resolved myself. It's like, okay, you can make it 7 more miles, and but I thought about some of those Wide World of Sports scenes where the person gets in the finishing chute and keels over, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to go down into that last mile. And I also thought the last mile, I take my older dog, Samantha, for a walk every morning before I go run. So usually my runs during the week are, we go, the three of us, Samantha, Gretchen, and I, go for a mile walk, or a little bit over a mile. And then I come back and I take Gretchen, the other dog, for 3 miles or so. And then I come back and I finish my run, however long it's going to be for that day. So when I got down to the last mile, a little bit, okay, I thought, okay, this is just a Samantha walk in the morning. And then I thought of poor Samantha's got some arthritis and and I was like, now I know how Samantha feels in the morning when she really doesn't want to go that mile, but I kind of drag her. And so I guess I ran the last mile for Samantha. But you go up and you cross a bridge and you start to see people, and it starts to get exciting, and you come into the town, and you have to but then you have to circle around and go down a hill kind of by yourself in the dark before you get to the finishing chute. But there was a guy down there who said, just get to the bottom of the hill and you'll be in the finishing chute. And thank God he wasn't lying. You get to the bottom of the hill and you can see the metal barriers of the finishing chute, and you can, of course, you can start to hear the announcer saying, "You are an Ironman." So you start running up, and the excitement of it all carries you up through the finishing chute. And when I crossed over the line, they have catchers there to kind of catch anybody that's a little bit on the dizzy side. And I wasn't dizzy, but when you stop everything, all the blood kind of goes to your feet, and you kind of get a little bit woozy sometimes. And so I kind of looked at him, and I kind of laughed, because I didn't feel that bad, as far as, I didn't feel like I was going to pass out or anything. And he gave me my hat and my shirt and my medal and a bottle of water, and I escorted me out of the chute. And that's kind of when the nausea really just hit me hard. It was just like a really bad case of motion sickness that lasted for an hour or so. But a little ginger ale, sipping that gradually, and went back to the hotel and just kind of laid still for a little bit, and was okay. I got to say, I recovered very, very well. Next day, a little bit of hamstring tightness. The next day, it's kind of funny how it moves around, a little bit of quadricep tightness. The race was on Sunday. I'm doing this podcast on Friday. I don't have any discomfort at all. And I'm going to attribute that to my plant-based nutrition. We did have beets the night before, brought a jar of beets with us. We had greens the night before. We had greens that next day. We had a picnic lunch on the way home, and, had more greens and kale and, good food and fruit, oatmeal. So, our nutrition was spot on, both before and after the race. As far as what I would have, going back to the race, I was hoping for a better time. Given the heat, I'm happy with what I did. I'm happy to have finished. My training was good. I don't have much more time to train than I trained. Could we have done a little bit more in the heat? I don't know. But I'm happy with it. It's always a challenge, and, I did the best that I can. I really didn't have anything else to give. There was no sprint in me up the finish chute, like, I have this energy I've been saving. There was nothing saved. It was all gone. But, the beauty of plants is it came right back, so it went from the exhaustion and, don't have much more in me to, fill the tank up, and I'm ready to go again. So I'm very, very pleased with that. Again, I'm happy to have finished the race, and not be injured. There was about a 38 to 40% did not finish did not finish in the race. So there's 2,000 people, and about 40% did not finish. Most of those people stopped on the bike course because it was so hot. And, it's a tough decision whether to stop and call it a day. But, I think that it's very wise for some people to do that. Your body, and it's a race. It's something we get to do. It's not something that, there's always another opportunity, and the chance to really get injured when you have a day job that you have to go back through is certainly not worth it. So that's a personal call. I know during the race, I thought about, what would happen if I were to get sick or this were to get worse. And it would be difficult for me to stop. I carry too many people with me when I do this race. I thought about my membership. I mean, the race means so much more to me than just doing an Ironman. It's kind of a status for being plant-based and being 57 and completing a race against some odds, doing something that's outside your comfort zone, very much outside your comfort zone. I did not grow up an athlete. I wasn't. I was in the band in high school. I golfed. I golfed until I was 40. So I mean, it's not like I've got a lot of athletic ability, but I'm a trainer and push it. I train looking at what people that are much better than I do, but I carry a lot of people with me. I think I always, and I thought about it going as I was running. The one marathon that I came closest to stopping was the Paris Marathon, and I think it was back in 2004. And I had some iliotibial band issues, and so that's a fascial area that connects to your knee, and your leg just locks up, and so you can walk, but you can't run when it kind of kicks in. You can't pull your leg through, and there's not a darn thing you can do about it. Once it becomes irritated, it's just has to run its course, and then it goes away. But if it happens on the day, then you're just kind of stuck with a walk run, and it was my second or third marathon. And I still, again, and even to this day, I have visions of grandeur that I was going to do a lot better than I am capable of. I dress like a Kenyan, so it was 40 degrees, and I'm dressed in shorts and a T-shirt, and I start out, and about mile 10, this iliotibial band kicks in. And my daughter and my nurse and my mom are, at the finish line. The only thing that I had was a card in my shorts someplace that had the name of the hotel on it. I didn't speak French. So the only way really to the finish line was to follow the guy in front of me till we got to 26 miles. I'm sure there probably was a medical tent someplace. But again, I was early enough in my marathon career, I probably didn't even recognize what that would have been. So I started walking. I got really cold, shivering cold when I was walking. So I tried to walk, run. And finally I saw this shirt on the side of the road, and I grabbed it. It was somebody's throwaway shirt, and put it on my arms. And that kind of kept me warm enough to keep moving. But I thought of my daughter during the race. I did not want to quit because I didn't want, she was about 8 or 9 at the time. And I didn't want, her to have that vision of you just quit. When things aren't going well, you can quit, and so that always stuck with me. That really drove me to the finish line that day, and I got to tell you, I thought about it during Sunday. It's to quit, and I know it's different for everybody, but and again, at some point, sometimes you have to, but that really drives me, the fact of just pushing on, because you have a little bit more, and a lot of things that happen to us that we can quit earlier maybe don't matter as much. I always have toenail issues during races, and your toenails start to hurt. Nah, they quit hurting. But that doesn't, you can say, well, that doesn't really matter. Nobody ever died of a blister for the most part, or a toenail injury. A little nausea, you can still throw up. I've been in the woods with other issues, the trots after, before I was vegan and all those other kind of things. So, it doesn't have to, those things really don't matter in the long run. You can keep kind of pushing on. If you get sick to the point where you're throwing up and you can't stand up, then obviously you have to quit. That hyponatremia, you got to take care of it. A serious leg injury that you're going to put you out, you have to take care of it. But there are a lot of things that just don't matter that we can keep pushing on. So, when the negative things come in your head, and this can be, again, I'm going to throw this more onto day-to-day life than endurance events. Those negative thoughts can add up and really be discouraging. But sometimes you've got to stamp them out and say, well, it just really doesn't matter. And you can keep going on, because if you let those negative things start to pile up, then it really impedes your progress. And so I guess that's my MO here for what I want to do with our practice and going forward is a lot of little things just doesn't matter, and we can't let those negative things creep in and stop us from getting to our goals. And you can even translate that down to nutrition selection in junk food. I met with somebody yesterday for the first time, and they're just becoming plant-based. And it's like, well, can you have a steak once in a while? How often can you have meat? And it's like, well, when you have that, it changes your microbes. You have toxins. You have vasoconstriction from the oil. Your immune system gets started, and an inflammatory reaction starts, and it doesn't just go away in a couple hours. It can take days for all that stuff to come back, and plus you start to reinitiate those cravings for things that you're trying to eliminate. So every time you do that, it's not just a one-time, I'm going to have a piece of meat. It's all the things that go with it. And we talked about, it's like, so if you went to the Outback, what would you order? And he giggled and he said, well, I want a filet. And it's like, well, yes. So you have to stay away from there for now. I would be perfectly content to go to the Outback and have a sweet potato and vegetables and a salad. But I'm someplace different on my plant-based journey than somebody just starting. So if that's going to stop you from completing your endurance event to become plant-based, then you have to avoid it. Or say that it just doesn't matter, that one steak. That one steak it doesn't mean that much to me to have that, because what really means a lot to me is the finish line, and how I'm going to be when I achieve my goals, or it just maintain my health and wellness. So the take-home message is, don't let the small stuff get in your way. That ice cream or that bite of this, bite of that can really trip you up. It just doesn't matter, so stay away from it. In the long run, you need to keep the positive thoughts going and keep your eye on the ball, but break things down into small, manageable steps. So what am I going to do good today to get to my goal? What am I going to do good in the next hour to get to my goal? If it means avoiding some sugary thing on the breakfast buffet. That said, I have a funny story. I'm using a new Mac that I really like today because I dumped coffee on my last Mac last week. So I'm sitting here with a sippy cup, basically with a cup of coffee that has a lid on it, and the lid's put down. I'm so paranoid to I don't know. I just grabbed my arm, went across, the coffee mug, and I spilled it last time. So I'm sitting here with a travel mug trying to do this podcast this morning. But I'm bound and determined that I'm not gonna spill coffee on my new laptop. So next up for me is the California International Marathon, and that's in December. So I'm gonna take it easy and just start to rebuild my running. I'm going to keep swimming because we also signed up for a brand new event called Swim Run in Austin, Texas next November. So we're going to forego the Ironman next year for a swim run event, which is a similar distance of running and swimming, but you do it shorter periods. So you run, swim, or swim, run, swim, swim, run in segments, and you're tethered to your partner by a 10-meter rope. You swim in your shoes. You run in your wetsuit. So you wear a short wetsuit, and you're tethered on the run as well. So it should be an interesting event. I'm looking forward to it. It's trail running and then, swimming in I guess, lakes around Austin. I don't know the full details of the event other than we signed up for the long course, so that's exciting, and it's a reason to keep swimming. So we'll be swim running training from here on out. Doing a little biking for fun on Sundays. I still have to keep the biking gear. And so that's what's up as far as that. This weekend, I'll be in Bradenton at their Veg Expo. I'm going to be speaking on lifestyle medicine and reversing lifestyle diseases through plant-based nutrition. We'll have a booth up there and have the book. If you're in Bradenton area and you want to stop by and say hi, I love that. We're going to be there all day. I think it's from 10 to 6 at night. So please stop by and say hi. I'm going to have some cowboy caviar and some banana bread muffins to give away. And it'll be fun to chat with anybody that's around. At the end of the month, I'm heading up to Atlanta for the Concierge Medicine Conference. I'm going to be speaking on adding lifestyle medicine to concierge medicine practices. Obviously, I changed my practice so it could be smaller, so we could have nutrition classes and spend time on health and wellness and plant-based nutrition and have lots of time to talk and learn and educate. And I think this is a great opportunity for other practices to do. You know, a lot of people call me and say, hey, do you know any doctor in my area? And, and there aren't that many. But concierge medicine is growing, and I think that is going to allow people to have more time to actually spend time with patients. It's just a great thing. I want to show them the beauty of having a registered dietitian on board. You know, Addie provides such a wonderful service, not just dietetics, but, doing webinars and patient education and helps with the nutrition class and the information. She runs a website. She does puts our newsletter together, and it just helps so much with communication. But to have a registered dietitian to really sit down with people and go over what they're eating and why they're eating what they're eating, and to troubleshoot and to shop with is invaluable. So I'm hoping to convey that to people as well. Our conference is March 28th. I'm going to start, talking about that every week. It's a day-long event. We're bringing in Pam Popper and Karen Hartglass to speak, as well as Addie and I with cooking demonstrations. It's a wonderful catered event at the Port Charlotte Beach Complex with great plant-based breakfast and lunch. Addie and I do consults the day before. So if you want to come in a day early to have a private consult, you're welcome. This year, we're adding a special immersion program as well. So starting the Monday before, we're taking only 7 people and doing a week of plant-based nutrition, health and wellness, and movement immersion. So it is for people that really want to get their health and wellness kicked started. We'll be exercising with you, running. It'll be a very active weekend. Obviously, if you're just starting, we start where you are. So it could be walking, it could be running, biking. We have yoga, Pilates, stand-up paddleboard for activities. We'll be having daily lectures. There'll be private consultations with Addie and I, and just a lot of education and information, great food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we're only going to do 7 people so that they can have our utmost attention, and we will be there every step of the way. So you'll have daily contact with both of us, and be able to ask all your questions, private attention, and just really learn a lot. So you can go onto our website, drdulaney.com, to see more about that. You can certainly call the office and talk to us if you have any questions about that. But if you're interested in that, I would do it early, because there's only going to be 7 slots. So you can, mark your slot for that if you'd like. You can get your tickets now. There's links on the website to get the tickets both to the conference and if you want to sign up for the immersion week. The other thing that is new and exciting is Mama Says, which is a plant-based nutrition plan online, MAMASEZZ.com. We have partnered with them because they do an athletic bundle, which is now being changed. The name's being changed to a performance bundle. You don't have to be an athlete to order the athlete or the performance bundle. It's food that we like and recommend, sugar, oil, and salt free. Um, Addie is going to be on board with them to look over that performance bundle nutrition. She's also going to be involved in their weight loss program. So they have a weight loss order tab that you can get food from them to kick off your weight loss if you're interested in that. Addie Dulaney Meinrich, my registered dietitian and daughter, will be heading up that, and she'll be doing an Ask Addie column on Mama Says and on the Facebook page as well. So check that out. It's some people just don't like to cook. And, in this household, we love to cook. We have our cookbook that's the Dulaney family recipes and what we use in the office. And, you can get that on Amazon or through our website. But sometimes you just don't like to cook. And Mama Says meals you can trust. Good ingredients, not, without the additives, without the things sneaking in that you don't, you don't want. So sugar, oil, salt free. And so it's a great thing to have for backup. So you can check that out. There's a link in our website, or you can go directly to mamasays.com website to check that out. When you're on our website, you'll notice that we have 3 levels of membership. We have a level 1 where Addie does a monthly consultation, and you have access to our website information. There's a level 2 where I give you once a month educational consult, and Addie does as well. And then level 3 is our full membership. You don't have to be in Port Charlotte, Florida to be a full member. We have full members all over the U.S. So we'd love to hear from you if you're interested in taking your plant-based health and wellness to a new level. And again, if you want to meet us for the first time, that immersion week or the conference would be a good way to do it. But we're happy to speak with anyone anytime. You can email me at jami@drdulaney.com. Love to speak with you. I hope that, this podcast motivates you to do something outside your comfort zone and to push things and to realize that sometimes those little things just don't matter. A little bit of plantar fasciitis, a little bit of knee pain. Sometimes it just goes away the more you exercise and the more you do things. A little bit of discomfort when you go out to dinner and you're not ordering the steak. It just doesn't matter in the long run because you're going to be much, much healthier. So keep a positive mental attitude. Push yourself outside your comfort zone. And thank you very much for listening.